just 7, 6 selected. Freiburg goes for the kill. He's going to pick it up. If just exists survives, he's going to win the round. There's no time. Oh my God, Freiburg, are you kidding me? Because of it. Freiburg is going to win.
Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of By the Numbers. I'm your host Richard Lewis. With me as always, it is of course the leading CSGO analyst Duncan Thorin Shields. We were just talking about how busy a schedule we've had. As you can see by my day call, I'm back home for one day only. And then I'm back on the road. I'm going to Bucharest, Minor, fly out tomorrow. And then I'll be back to America for reasons unknown. Whereas you, Duncan, apparently you have elevated to the pantheon of CSGO gods. And you won't be doing minors anymore. Is that right?
Exactly. I mean, it was, I did enjoy my time when I was working way up in the industry, when I was just one of those little, like I was doing the bit parts, but when you get that big marquee billing, Rich, I mean, basically, once you've talked shit to Shaq, you can't just be talking about dog shit teams that are from don't even know, Czech Republic or something anymore. It's got to be the high quality. Yeah? You got to be at that level the whole time, Yeah,
well, I'm gonna miss you. When I'm doing this event, I did presume we were gonna go, but that the package is slowly but surely becoming unstitched. Who knows where we will end up together in the future? Though that's what I will say, wouldn't it? Who knows?
Never know.
We'll never know.
Ideally, I thought, the two of us, I thought there was a few obvious opportunities that were coming up. A lot of the people behind these opportunities were very eager that we'd work and we do a lot of great work. But then, it's esports, Rich. So every now and then there's a few horrible cunts who would just really, really hate other people and their success, and they try to ruin things. So whatever that might mean, there'll be a little callback, I feel like, in a few weeks or a month or so. Someone could come back to this episode, see where I was planting the seeds there,
It's actually weird. I gotta say, I've never been successful really in esports. So I've been established. I've been known. I've been infamous, but I've never really been successful. I don't think, but by whatever metric we sort of judge success, it seems to be in esports you judge success by money, Twitter followers. I don't really know, like big YouTube channel. But you're right. People really do get upset about it. Like when people are doing well, like people that they don't like. It's been a very strange few weeks because I've kind of come under fire, not from the usual mere plebeians that I usually get, but actual industry people have been going all out to try and unstitch everything that I've achieved so far to date. And it's just driving me crazy.
So we will actually talk about this on a show that's coming after this. Called Unfiltered Esports. So maybe we just tease that there. We'll go into more details about that perhaps on that show.
Yeah, I think you're right, actually.
But for now, we do still have a job in Counterstrike. We are still getting paid money. So while that's still going, let's make the most of it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like I actually have apprehensions about going on and doing Unfiltered because it's never really been good for you. It's never really been kind to you as a show. Whenever you've gone on there, bad things seem to happen. So I mean,
it's okay. I feel like this time, some of the bad elements aren't going to be around there. There'll be a nice atmosphere. Yeah. It'll just be great conversation between people who are really deserving of jobs in esports.
Third time the charm. Let's see. So let's jump into some stories. I guess we kind of start where we left off from our previous one. And the big story was FaZe coming in and finally securing the acquisition of G2 Esports. Now, there's a lot of jiggery pokery and shady nonsense going on around that, which we'll get to in a second. But let's just talk about the acquisition and this team. And like I say, I'm really want to get into the business practices around it afterwards. But I actually think this is a really good pickup for FaZe. They're a Call of Duty organization. They've come into this new space. They obviously have a lot of money to spend, a huge following, and I think they've entered the scene at a very high level. Perhaps not as impressive as Envious, certainly, no disrespect, Hex, more impressive than Optic. What are your thoughts?
No, I think you've phrased it well there. Obviously, here's the thing. If you're going to use the Call of Duty organizations, that really is the spectrum right there. Obviously, Optic, Envious, FaZe. If you look at them, Envious is obviously one hands down. I mean, they've already got a major under the Envious org in their bag. They've got something like, I don't know, 7 or 8 titles at this point in time. They've been an elite team for a long time. You can't really expect anyone who came in afterwards to get a better team than that. I mean, the best you probably could have gotten is if you'd have gotten like what ended up being Astralis, or you got maybe Nip or someone. But at the moment, unless you could, there wasn't anyone available that was as good as the Envious Lamps. Okay, he essentially he got rewarded for his forward thinking there by coming in so early in the industry to get his team. Optic came in and they've gotten a team which is like, because they've gone for the NA side, I think that's why they've suffered. Because we've seen what a clusterfuck the offseason's been in NA, where it's almost impossible to actually make good decisions, it feels like, in NA, because so many people like are already so many other people's fuck ups meant that there's like so few players available, and then if this player joins, he has to join with this other player, and then this guy's buyout is 7 times bigger than it should be. You know, all these problems mean that I actually feel sorry for the Optic guys, because they did in the end plump for one of the better lineups. It's just unfortunately that lineup blew it at the first big event for them, basically. Aside from E-League, basically the minor. In terms of the FaZe one, I actually like the FaZe approach. In general, I think it's a mistake for all these NA orgs to think like, essentially, I think they really underestimate Counterstrike, and they think, oh, it doesn't matter what team I get now, so I'll actually purposely get a North American org, and I'll mold these players into stars, and because they're North American, I'll get all the North American fans, and then eventually I'll have a really good team. Mate, have you seen the history of CSGO in North America? That's not that easy to do. So I actually prefer the approach of the Envious type people, which is like, I'm just going to get a really good team. And if it happens to be from Europe, okay, I'm going to get the best one I can. So within that context, I think FaZe has done a pretty good job in getting a team. It's true the team's on a little bit of a downward slump at the moment. Like, we don't know if, like, soon, I just published my ranking today. I think I had them at 8th. So they're not super high up, but they're obviously got some quality in the lineup. They've got some players who can be stars. So I think it's a good pickup. I think it's better than most of the NA org pickups that we've seen over the off-season. It's not at the level of an Envious, but you haven't got a whole lot of options at the moment. So I think overall, it makes sense to me that they picked up this team. I don't know that much about Call of Duty, though, so I can't comment to what FaZe are like as an org. So I've just heard that they're very big.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so let's look at it this way. I think the way that the landscape's mapped out, being able to buy your way into the top 10 is actually incredible that can happen, because, you know, you look at what everyone else who's come late to the party is trying to do. They're like, holy shit, it's a rigged game now. I would need to literally, you know, break the bank or find an organization willing to sell and break the bank, which is the more accurate summary of what you would need to do to get a team. And that's just to have anything close to presence. You know, Optic were getting ridiculed for picking up a team in the top 20, because we know once you get to like the 12th, 13th team in terms of talent, there is a bit of a drop off. There really is, and that's because of how, I don't know, CSGO tournaments are structured. Things like the minor are looking to address that. I think maybe we're addressing that problem a little bit late. I don't think because people expected CS to get this big, we were really worried about sort of the disparity of talent between top level and some tier 1 and tier 2. But that said, this, as reported on the Daily Dot, this $700,000 price tag, which is a record amount spent on a CS team. Do you think this represents value for money? I mean, obviously, FaZe can afford it. It's, again, according to the Daily Dot, I think it was $300,000 down, then 200,000 payments, you know, to be paid at a later date. So ultimately, it's a $300,000 down payment. Does this represent good value for money for this team? Are they going to go on and win trophies? Should it even be about that? Is the return going to be in the sticker money, because this is an organization that's made up of fan favorites?
That's one thing that I'm really uncertain about with that team, is this automatic assumption that because someone's a FaZe fan in Call of Duty, they're now going to buy the sticker every major and they'll just make all the money back. I think that's, there will be some bleed over, I'm fairly sure, but whether or not that will be the way it works, I'm not entirely sure. Like, I suspect that part of the reason why Envious did so well in stickers is because they were a fucking amazing team who won loads of titles and were one of the best in the world. I don't think it's that everyone was like, well, I love Envious in Call of Duty, therefore I will buy the stickers in CSGO. I'm not sure it's as simple as that. So I don't think it's like obvious that they'll make the money back. But I do think, unless CSGO kind of like levels out and then drops in the next 2 years, then it was probably worth even a crazy fee like that. Just when you find out how stupid the buyouts are for individual players who aren't even good. So actually, it might sound crazy now to spend 700,000, but if in 2 years the 13th best team costs $1.5 million, that will have been an excellent investment, actually. On top of that, there's the aspect where you're saying, like, can they win trophies? That's the part where I'm a lot more uncertain, actually, because I have to say, when I look at this lineup at the moment, I don't think they can, actually. Like, I always think of this team. I think the reason why people have an unfair opinion on this team is they just think of the high point, and then they're only looking at the high point, or they're looking at now. I look at the whole lifespan of the team, from when they were King Win to when they became G2, when they had the major run, and then now where they are. And obviously they started a lot lower than they are now. They were a lot higher than they were at the major, and now they're like somewhere in between. So when I look at the talent, I don't see any problem with them being able to stay where they are now. Like, maybe if things go well, they can be like the 6th best team. If things go badly, maybe they're the 10th best team. But they've got enough quality in the lineup and enough basic chemistry that I think it should be possible. And obviously, if they have this backing where they could get proper coaches, then they potentially have the backing to be a good team. I have to say, though, at the moment, I'm unconvinced that they'll ever be like an elite team. Like, I don't think they'll ever be like top 3 or top 4. Like, I think that whole thing of the major, that was kind of a miracle run, and it was wicked at the time, but they haven't been able to replicate that.
Well, this is where we're going to disagree. All right. This is where it's going to those rare moments where the common sense approach towards CS is going to be, disregarded, and we're not going to find some common ground. I think they're potentially one roster move away from being an elite level team. I think they're right up there for me. And I think this is what's very interesting. You've got a lineup here that really has potential to reach. This isn't like, for example, going out and buying a Virtus Pro, for example, where, they're going to win one tournament, then they're going to do bad in another, and then, top 4 in another, and it's going to be this up and down. But actually, in terms of individual levels, you kind of feel that they're at their peak. I mean, many of them are experienced, older veterans. If you bought that team, they'd represent you well, but you can't take them to that next level. All the coaching and everything in the world isn't going to necessarily improve your fortunes. I think with this team, I think with the FaZe lineup, you actually have that potential. I think you can get these guys coached. I think you can maybe install an in-game leader or a very forthright coach that does all the calling for them, as they tried to do before, when that other chap who got the VAC ban had to stand down. I honestly think that these can be a top 4 team. I really do.
Then I've just seen an obvious scenario that's presented itself.
Yes, I see it as well.
I'll even take this exact example. So 2016's just begun. At the end of 2016, I think Virtus Pro will have done better than FaZe. And remember, Virtus Pro, they've kind of got what they've got. They've got this investment that comes from God knows where in fucking Siberia, where they've been shipping unobtainium from the locals or whatever the fuck they did to get that money. And I think Virtus Pro at the end of the year will have outperformed this FaZe lineup. Still a long way to go, Rich.
Okay,
you want to take your side of that?
By what metric?
More top 4 finishes, more trophies, better placings at the major. I'll take it all, mate.
No, fuck it. I'll have a piece of this.
Okay.
So more top 4 finishes.
Sure.
Is that the measurement? Or
that's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
More titles.
Yeah. No, forget titles, because I think that can be. Okay. Then we get into the whole realm of what's a title? Right. We have to do that like ESL ranking system where only ESL events count and everyone else is shit. I don't want to do that. Right. So let's just do top 4 finishes at events. Okay.
And we can obviously use the honor system here. We'll know if it's like there's some bullshit reasoning as to why one did or didn't win. At the end of the year, we'll obviously reasonably be able to say who won.
Now here's the thing. I know in terms of bets, you would never part with Skrilla. You would never play for Skrilla. No. There's no fucking way you would play for Skrilla. So
unless it was on Alphadraft, and then I'd love to play for Skrilla, Rich.
That's absolutely true. That jingle you did, it can't get out my Alpha. I just can't get out of my head.
Reference game incredibly on point.
Yeah. Thorin B. Yeah, love it. So anyway, what can we do it for? I don't want to do one of those cheesy esports thing and like shave my head. Okay. Obviously, that would be very humiliating for me if I were to do that. Okay. So, what we need something here.
Yeah. What should the winner get?
Yeah.
Let's see. Usually, because the problem is, since we're not using money, it's not going to be something that's really like amazing to gain. So it probably has to be that the other person loses something.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I think that if I win, then you have to do something like get a pen and write on your face, like 360 no scoping bitches across your face. And if you win, I'll write something like Poland #1 Kerwa on my face with a pen. Because remember, this pitch will be on the internet forever.
Yeah. All right. This is the stakes are high. The stakes are high. The stakes are high.
Right?
Yeah.
That's legit.
All right. Fuck it. I'm in. I've got more advertising space to make it work, so to speak. But yeah, fuck it. It's a bet. Top 4 finishes. Someone suggested maybe Fox's #1. That could be brutal.
That could be that as well.
That's pretty. I mean, obviously it's a lie, no matter what, no matter which way you spin it. But anyway,
it'll be on your face forever on the internet. So
and of course, there's a realistic chance that Fox won't be in the team by the end of the year. Hey, so that'll trigger all the Fox fans. Watch our numbers spike up suddenly now as the Portuguese emergency Fox is being insulted somewhere. Bell is rung and away, and here they come. But yeah, no, I'm definitely in for a piece of that. I'm in for a piece of that. I honestly think FaZe are going to have a big year. So. It's on record now. Obviously, I might have fucked myself, but let's get into it. Now, let's get into the business practices, because there was a lot of shit going on surrounding the acquisition of this team, and already there is this concerted effort to refute what I reported, which was about the involvement of Jens Hilger, who is a ESL board member, one of the founders of ESL, who has a business relationship with G2 Esports, the extent to which isn't known. What we can say is that one of the companies that he sets up acts as a partner to the business. Some other people say he has shares in G2 Esports. Indeed, this is something that has been commonly repeated by G2 staff internally. So apparently what happened during the acquisition process was Jens Hilger used his position as an ESL board member to threaten the FaZe organization and basically say, if you successfully poach our players, you will be banned from the ESL, ESEA Pro League. I will leverage my position to make that happen. Now, multiple sources have told me this. I've seen evidence that puts this out there. It was also communicated via an email, which makes it very seems strange to me that already Jens and Ocelot together are already conspiring to deny this publicly. I'd advise caution on that front if I was them, because, just saying, things might come out that might make you look even worse. So I'd be real careful. But yeah, so I mean, what do you think about all of this? I mean, this seems to me, this is at best a conflict of interest, at worst an act of out-and-out corruption.
I mean, if there's any here's the thing: if there's any basis of like fact in that whatsoever, as in if they ever did even make the threat, whether they could actually carry it off or not's another matter. But whether they made the threat that we will in some way prohibit you from playing in ESL tournaments, that alone is an absolute disgrace, obviously. I mean, by the way, on the ESL side of things, that would be a disgrace. Now, I'm not assuming that this person actually necessarily could do that. I don't know. Maybe he's just using a power play of his position. Maybe the ESL people, if he came to them, would say, well, obviously we can't do something like that. But just on ESL's side, if you ever would even consider doing something like that, just on the basis of personal relationship, you're scum, basically. You shouldn't even be in a sport. There's nothing, personal relationships like that should have nothing to do with sporting decisions, such as like admin decisions of who gets to be in a league, who doesn't, and things like that. You should have no place in it. And the fact that that happens is actually something that has held esports back in the past when silly things like that have ever been allowed to affect things. Yeah. So that's one thing. It's obviously a disgrace if there's any truth to it. One thing I'm surprised by, though, is when it's something on that scale. So it's not just about some stupid player who might be gone in a year and who cares if that person denies it or if it's true or whatever. When it's about someone who's been in the industry for like a decade or more, and they've been a founding member of massive companies, they've had jobs at massive companies, people don't realize the notion that you would just create this whole cloth fabricated is so unlikely, because in the real world, that person could literally sue you right now and say, this person defamed me and like is ruining my job opportunities because he's told all these lies about me. And since it's all false, you'd have an extremely hard time like proving that in court. These people never do that, have you noticed? That's never the path they go down, even though they're all supposed to be these businessmen who know all about the business world. It's only they just go back in themselves into the world of like the court of public opinion. They say, no, it's all a lie. You know what that person's like it's full of shit. Like I'd never do anything like that. And basically provide no evidence, make no compelling arguments, and just say it's not true. So I think it's a bit whack.
You'll be astounded to know that I've received notification today that ESPN, of all people, a company that have come into the esports space and while conducting interviews have told applicants that they do not want to break news stories. They've out and out said that.
Doesn't really make sense if you're ESPN and you say that, but okay.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I guess the esports section is going to be fluff, which is very popular and very lucrative.
I mean, to be fair, they did break that story about how we're all drug addicts. So got to give them some points.
That is true. They did break that, it was news to me, obviously. But yeah, so apparently ESPN are going to do a follow-up story in cooperation with Ocelot and Jens to basically dismantle the story that I wrote. Which seems a very good use of ESPN's time. I can't think of any reason why they would want to do that, Duncan.
It's almost like personal relationships are getting involved again, but like on the journalist side and the ESPN side this time. It's weird that, isn't it? There's no history, is there, with you and journalists of them actually going to sources and telling them to lie about you or say something didn't happen?
No, I can't think of any example. There was this website, I don't know if you know it. There was like an on gamers, I think it was called, something like that. Gone Gamers, we call it now, because they went under. They did something similar to that, but I mean, I can't remember who was involved in that. There's no way it could be the same people. The industry is simply too big for that. So,
well, I mean, it's good that they're not going to break stories. They're just going to try and break down other people's stories and show them all to be false.
Yeah,
sounds like some positive for the community, right?
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, so I mean, so here's the other part of this. Now, the motivations behind this allegedly happening was, first of all, I mean, we can safely assume G2 Esports actually didn't want to sell. They wanted to keep the team, but relationships had apparently broken down internally. There's a lot of crazy stories yet to come out that haven't been told, including a player's, one of the ways that the organization learned about FaZe expressing an interest was a player's email got hacked, right? I mean, some insane levels of shit going on behind the scenes.
How incredibly lucky for them, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the player goes to log in one day, his password doesn't work, and all of a sudden the organization happens to know that FaZe have expressed an interest. How very odd. So there's all this crazy shit going on. But apparently we can safely deduce that G2 Esports didn't want to sell, and they'd actually set a very high price, an unpayable price, crazier than the $700,000 that later came out on the Daily Dot. So I think where it gets really interesting for me is none of this is actually aimed at ESL, by the way, from my reporting. From what I can tell, ESL actually came in after Jens had a conversation with them about this. And about his frustrations, and ESL acted as an arbitrator to ensure that the sale kind of went through and no one fucked anyone over. I don't know why they'd be doing that. I mean, if it was me, I'd probably just have said, I don't want to get involved. It's not really our place. But I guess given that the relationship between Jens being a board member, founder member, having many friends in ESL, by his own admission on his LinkedIn page, and this new organization, FaZe, who are going to be very successful, very good for CSGO. Obviously, we all want to mend fences. This is what happens behind the scenes.
But don't forget, though, Richard, FaZe were given, I believe, the wildcard final spot for the ESL League, the Pro League. So
yeah.
It's weird how those two things did line up, though, you know. Maybe it would be better for ESL if the final spot in their league was this huge North American organization, you know. So there might have been something going on there, I think.
Yeah. Bit of a strange one for me. I don't really know. I mean, and again, far be it from me to suggest that there's all these weird overlapping ties, you know, in business. And indeed, you know, I've seen videos of ESPN with ESL logos on, as if they had some official partnership going on. Far be it from me to suggest there's any kind of, dare I say, conspiracy here. But I definitely do think that what ESL did in this instance, which was basically expedite the sale, facilitate the sale, act as a point of communication between these two parties. I don't necessarily think that's bad. I just don't think they were expecting anyone to report it or for it to get out in public. So, but it is a mess, and I'm very intrigued to see where it's going to go in terms of denials. The Daily Dot article specifically said that the threat of the ban from the ESL ESEA Pro League was done to drive the price up.
Ah, okay.
So
that in itself's kind of shady.
Yeah, I mean, this was a report by Josh Raven, a young journalist over at the Daily Dot. He's primarily known for his League of Legends reporting. He expressly said in the Daily Dot report, where he reported the number of $700,000, that wasn't in my report. That wasn't a number that I put out there. That's all Josh's work, assuming it's true. They basically said that the threat was there, so they would meet their valuation or be more likely to. And Ocelot's come out today, only an hour before we went live, and he's done a little thing on Twitter explaining why he sold. And he said, I think on Reddit, he said, I think it's worth to clarify the following. Nobody has used any extortion with anyone for any buyout. Additionally, everyone has been paid in time and fully at all times. This is the truth, and there will never be any proof against these facts. Anything else is pure speculation, only believable by very, very naive individuals.
I mean, whether there'll actually be any hard proof, bear in mind, essentially, the things they were promising to do didn't happen. Seems a bit like no. And also, it seems more like a classic scenario where people were fucking around, got caught out, and then now are like, I was never doing anything anyway, and I always was on the straight and narrow. Thank you, Your Honor.
Yeah, exactly right. Like, I don't know. I don't necessarily. I don't know what Ocelot's involvement in this really is. I mean, I can imagine him acting as a conduit. Everyone was telling me that Jens basically has acted as a mentor to Ocelot and taught him the ways of esports business, which probably explains one or two things. And my write-up was about this guy in the background who holds a board position at ESL where he advises them on strategy, leveraging that position to try and drive away organizations from buying, their team. And when I say their team, I mean, technically it's Ocelot's team, right? So this makes it even more likely that Jens does own shares. And we're starting to hear now that maybe he's got interests in other esports teams out there, which again creates this conflict of interest. And you're absolutely right. I don't think it's any coincidence that FaZe aren't listed in the invites one day, then literally the day after the sale's approved, the wild card's announced and FaZe is in. I mean, as a timeline itself, that looks shady, right?
It's one of the things that's amazing about esports to me is that people never even think that the things that they deny, they don't even like cover their tracks very well. Like, why not wait a week extra, then just announce that? It's not like the league starts tomorrow. So, I mean, I don't even know why you'd make it so shit. Like, why make it look like it's what people are saying it is, the conspiracy? Yeah,
exactly. It just seems...
And by the way, for anyone who now steps in and goes, exactly, the fact that it looks like it means it isn't. No, you have to understand these people are morons, essentially, is what I'm saying. I wasn't suggesting that they're really devious and clever and somehow they stop. I'm suggesting they're actually cretinous, incompetent people. Yeah. Just so we're clear.
Yeah. I think that was implied, but thanks for...
But founding father of esports and all that stuff. So, I mean, no one's ever had a dad that was a moron.
So anyway, let's put the FaZe stuff to bed. I'm sure there's going to be more stuff about that in the next few days. As I said, you can expect the ESPN article that comes out, and once again, these journalists in esports are going to use their time, their resources, and their platform not to do work that exposes some of the stuff that's going on behind the scenes. Certainly, this League of Legends story about the visas seems to have escaped ESPN. Which, again, I'm amazed. They've even hired League of Legends specialists.
I even would have thought, just as like a speculation, that some of the people involved at ESPN would actually have some sort of the groundwork to make that story already maybe in the back pocket or something.
Yeah, it's but instead of doing that, what they're going to do is they're going to wait for somebody else to report something and then offer their services basically as a PR platform to refute that story. And let's be absolutely clear, it's not as if I didn't offer my services for that purpose, in the sense that I said, do you want to comment on these allegations? And I was told the article isn't worthy of comment. It's laughable journalism, basically, is what I got told. Nobody wanted to offer comment on it.
I mean, to be fair, I think the ESPN article probably will be laughable journalism. So,
well,
in many ways, they've seen into the future there, I think.
Yeah. So we'll wait and see how that one goes. Let's since we'll segue out of edgy esports politics and get into something that we enjoy doing. Obviously, gloating at the community's collective stupidity. They've announced the talent for the major, and we're both in it, Duncan, which I'm really surprised by, actually.
Interesting, isn't it? Because I was told actually that after that FACEIT Stage 3 tournament, everyone was really happy that we would never work another tournament again. I mean, I've only done a couple since then. I would never work another tournament again. Definitely not any big tournaments. And you know what? All the tournaments that really know about esports, finally they'd have seen like our true faces, and we'd just be out of the industry pretty much. So I'm glad that we scraped this tiny little job together at possibly the biggest CS event ever held.
Yeah, I can only think there's been a mistake, because when they did the pictures, they got me and Anders mixed up. I can only think.
Right, so that's what they've done.
Yeah, I can only think they thought they were hiring Anders twice. Which makes sense. So yeah, a little bit disappointed to get in that way. But as it's been established, if I don't take it where I can, I'm just never going to have that opportunity again. So I'm going to get a fake beard. I'm going to, pad out my jacket, not quite as much as I used to have, but I'm going to pad it out. I'm going to just talk in catchphrases and cliches the entire time. And I'm going to let Semler perform sexual acts on me to try and blend in and come across as Anders. So
just remember that part is off camera, though. The sexual deviance part is entirely off camera. And in fact, that guy does a really good job of separating his private, incredibly debauched life from his incredibly professional on-camera life.
Yeah, he does a very good job. You couldn't tell by looking at the glint in his eyes that Anders was a colossal pervert.
But here's the thing, Richard. For me, there's a bigger issue here. Like, obviously, I've only done DreamHack majors. So I did DreamHack Winter 2 times, and I did DreamHack Cluj-Napoca. So this won't just be my 4th major. But I am really, really happy, Richard, to be doing a CSGO major in March in a bigger arena in a country I really want to visit.
I know. I feel like
it's been my dream in many ways, I
feel like we're being punished. I honestly feel like we're being punished. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. Overall thoughts about the talent lineup. I mean, we usually comment on talent when we're not doing the events, so I think it's fair that we throw in a few things. It looks pretty good. Yeah,
actually, let me just have a quick look at what the overall lineup. Obviously, I know like the basic people. I want to check like the outlier people in case there was anyone missed or anything. So I'm just pulling it up now. So from what I remember, the majority of them were all, in fact, let me have a look. In fact, yeah, every single person on this list pretty much is among the best at their role in the entire industry. This is almost like DreamHack Cluj-Napoca levels of really, really good desk and really good casters and really good interviewers and hosts and all the rest of it. I think this is fantastic. I also think it's really interesting that it's not just that DreamHack have worked with a lot of talent and somehow get that amazing desk and talent that they had for Cluj-Napoca. But now another company who's hosting a major has got this fantastic talent lineup. It seems like there's only one company can't get the best talent lineups for their event. I don't know what that could be. But anyway, aside from that, I actually think it's really good. Like, when I look at all this list here, I think you'd have a hard time. Here's the problem. Even if you had a name you want to put on, you have a hard time taking a name off the list. Like, I'll give you an example, okay? I think that Yanko obviously has done a really good job over the last few months, but it's true that he also has only just started to come into being an analyst. I think his first event, I remember, I think the first event he did ever was like DreamHack Stockholm qualifiers for the Cluj-Napoca, and I think his first proper event after that was the World Championship that he did with us. So he might have only done 4 or 5 events at this point in time. So it's true, even if you become very good, you sometimes still getting good isn't it. You have to also build up the brand aspect. So I think in the future, I think he's definitely going to be on majors. It's just that for this particular one, I mean, they're not just going to kick out for Flaren just because you've become really good now. Like, Flaren's a bigger name. He's done it more. And so, and like I say, even the people who I might have edged in there, I think there's pretty compelling cases for everyone who is on the list. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'll be honest. I think what'll happen is Yanko will come as an observer, and I think he'll end up on the desk at like some point anyway. I think he'll make a guest appearance. I think Adam strongly hinted about that on Twitter, and I think that's fair.
That's a good idea. Get him in.
For those that don't realize, like obviously, I know a lot of people like to theory craft about the relationships in the esports scene and who gets along and maybe who doesn't. And you can see by the look in Anders' eyes that he wants Thorin to die and things like this that you read when you're doing events. And obviously, this entire group of people are all unbelievably tight. Like, we're all really fucking close. Like, when we go to events, the camaraderie's good. We all hang out. We all got drinking together. There isn't, like, anybody that's, like, an outsider or an outlier. So, like, we're all very much a cohesive unit. And that's not just predicated on the fact that we like each other, you know, because I'd never met Yanko until we started working events with each other. I knew who he was, but we never had worked together. I'd never spent any time with him. It's actually predicated on respect for people's ability. You know, like, you know people are good at what they do. And that's like all the best casting partnerships there, in my opinion. That's all the best sort of analysts there. Like, Moses has had like a godlike rise to where he is. So much so, you know, I hope there's a possibility he can get in on the Turner League when they start announcing broadcasting. I think he's ready for that. I think he's a phenomenal talent. And you know, the one thing that I'm really want to get across as well is having Chris Puckett there to do the interviews. Man, I saw people on Reddit saying, "Who the fuck is this random?" It's like, man alive. You know what I mean?
This way, listen, Rich, I don't pull any punches. Some of the people who do interviews in esports and CSGO are shit. They've only done it for a few events and they're just not good. And some of them don't even have the basic technical skills. And some of them, like, can't ask a question, can't do the follow-up, aren't that good on camera. They might be good in different areas of life, which is how they got hired to that job. But Chris Puckett, the whole thing about him is, yeah, he doesn't know loads about CSGO. He's only been in the scene a little while. But the whole thing is, he's exactly like, okay, think about this, okay? If you wanted someone to do a voiceover for a video, you wouldn't go, right, who knows everything about this movie and the way it is? You hire a guy who has the fucking Hollywood trailer voice, and he does the best possible technical job he can do, and he just reads the words that he's told to do. That's what this guy's like, basically, for interviews, because he's got that great, like, American voice. It's like the sports announcer voice. He's done loads of American events, like, I think, Call of Duty, Halo, probably StarCraft as well. So as a result, he's got sick tenure, and he'd probably do a really good job.
Yeah, and I think he's going to really win over a lot of people when he does this event. I think if people don't know who Puckett is, they're going to afterwards. He's been trained by actual broadcasting talent in America. He's he's TV ready.
Oh, by the way, just because I have to throw a shot out at all times, Rich. So here's the shot. Are you ready?
Obviously. Yeah, I'm ready.
I don't want to hear any of you in CSGO dare talk about this guy perhaps not deserving this job, because in CSGO at another event, they literally hired the fucking blonde bimbo off a talk show who's like the comic relief and the nice thing, appealing aesthetic thing for the eyes. They hired her, who knew nothing about esports, to do the interviews, and you fucks didn't go, who is this? You all went, she is doing a really good job. And I think you could tell she was learning about esports and liking it. It's like, just shut your fucking pie hole, unless it's to shove more eel and, I don't even know, reference game incredibly eel and mash.
Yeah. 1800s London reference game on point. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's a real good talent lineup, and I'm looking forward to working it. And of course, I'm fucking thrilled to have that opportunity. And again, I'm pretty confident that Yanko he'll slot in there somewhere. I'm fairly sure. Another bit of news. I'm sort of hanging back on the DreamHack Leipzig thing for a little bit. I saw that FACEIT announced in Variety magazine that they've raised $15 million in sort of capital to improve their platform, and they're also looking to expand into the US as a result of that. Now, we know FACEIT have had this meteoric rise of late. That they've been working with Turner on the production for the Road to Vegas. Their tournaments have been partnered with DreamHack. They're putting money into these events. People, they've got a good broadcasting setup. They got great talent studio. What people don't realize is this is actually an example of one of the most successful startups I think there's ever been in esports. Like, it's one of the rare success stories where somebody who didn't really know about esports has come in, put money into esports, and has built something sustainable and successful. And here they are now getting this $15 million to expand. I remember working for them when they just had offices in Milan. I went and did an event with them. We hired, my old company hired them to basically provide a broadcasting solution for an event we were doing. And I was part of that team, and it was great. And seeing them come this far, you know, developing talent like James, like DDK, who was like their Quakecaster back then. This is, again, like it's a huge success story. And I don't think people make a big enough deal about it. We're all very quick to point out the failures and kind of laugh at them, but not quite so quick to say, you know, FACEIT since 2012 have only gone in one direction.
The only thing is, though, since you said like the money is raised to improve the platform, do you think that actually changes the tournament circuit, though? Because one of the interesting things about this move to me is that last year, when all the power play was going on behind the scenes, and at the time we couldn't officially say it, but it was essentially Turner, ESL, people deciding like which leagues will happen. Will some of them be exclusive? Will you be only able to play in certain leagues? People like FACEIT were the ones who were worried because they were like, are we going to get squeezed out? I mean, we can't compete with these big companies.
Yeah.
Like, okay, if the 15 million is all just to literally improve the technology, do you think they actually will at some point be in a position where they could just go directly head to head with these people I'm talking about now, make their own league or not have to worry about that?
I actually think so. And I think this is interesting. People, who the fuck was it? And I don't even know if I could say, even if I could recall. But let's just put it this way. Somebody already in the industry space wanted to buy FACEIT. And basically have them kind of amalgamated into their esports empire. And FACEIT were very clear. They were like, if there was ever going to be a deal done, it'd be us buying you. Like, we've got money, we're fine. We just because we're not announcing it every like 3 weeks that, hey, look, we've got all this money, or dumping it on projects that eventually go on to fail, or employing everyone in the industry with a vague tie to fucking esports because we're scared about anyone else hiring them. You know, just because they've actually been kind of frugal with their money and smart with their money doesn't mean they don't have money. So, yeah, I think FACEIT could do that if they wanted to. Where it gets really interesting is FACEIT have always been involved in the sort of diplomacy of it all. Like, they people won't remember this, but way back when I think it was when ESL were about to get bought by MTG, there was a group of tournament organizers that wanted to form an anti-ESL alliance. That maybe is wording it a bit too strong, but they wanted to be secure that ESL wouldn't have a monopoly on the industry. And that was like DreamHack, Starladder, I can't remember who the others are, but, you know, like
MLG maybe.
I think this is before MLG even came at the table, and then you know Gfinity probably, and then maybe, and then FACEIT, and there was like 4 organizations that were going to come together and make something big, right, and sort of, you know, try and stem the tide of ESL. And of course, we all know where DreamHack went. They chose to kind of join that group in a way by getting bought by MTG. But FACEIT have always been the company that are like, look, we'll go whatever's best for kind of the bigger picture. They don't really necessarily want to just cash the fuck out. They are actually legitimately building something, which is refreshing. Everyone else seems to be thinking about, well, how do we sell? How do we build something worth selling? You know, if you look at what's happened, MTG by ESL and DreamHack, you know, obviously now MLG, been acquired by Activision Blizzard. FACEIT, one of the few companies that I think are like, no, we're very comfortable doing what we're doing, and we'll take capital and we'll invest it, but we ain't going to sell. And they must have had offers. They must have had crazy offers because they got a business model. It's not just a tournament circuit and a broadcasting studio. They've got an actual online platform that makes money, which is like better than, you know, a lot of these businesses. You know, what DreamHack don't have anything comparable to that. Which is probably reflected by why DreamHack had to sell so cheap. So I think they could. I think they could conceivably put this into whatever they want. I mean, it says it's to build the online platform. I think when you put capital in, you know, obviously you've got to account for how you spend it. But I think there's an argument there to say if you expand the tournament side of things, you strengthen the brand, maybe make people more likely to come and play on your tournament platform and, you know, on your pugging system.
It's funny that, like, I actually think one thing that people don't give enough credit to is the notion of people selling out as a bad thing. Because here's the problem. On the surface, to someone who had nothing to do with the business, it sounds logical that if you had something worth $100,000 and then next year it was worth $1 million and someone said, here's $1.5 million, that you would sell it. That seems logical. But that's because you're just a pleb sitting looking at big numbers going, wow, imagine if I had $1 million. Yeah, that would be $1 million you didn't do anything for. Now, if you'd made a business and you'd put incredible hours, years of your life, maybe sacrificed things to make this business successful, and it eventually was worth $1 million, and someone came to you and offered you $1.5 million, but you actually believed in the industry and what you were doing, and you knew, because you really believed it, that it was going to be worth $10 million in 2 years. Yeah. You would not sell. Yet nearly everyone in esports goes, oh, I believe this is going to be the next big sport. It's only going to get bigger. There's going to be non-endemics next year. $1 million, where do I sign? Oh, there you go. I've signed. I've sold the whole shit.
Yeah.
You don't believe it, obviously, because if anything, now would be not when you'd sell. On the other hand, if you think that now is the absolute maximum this will ever be valued, and it will only probably even go down, and you're going to con the person you're selling to now, that's like more in line with what people are doing, I think.
Well, look, let's. I've used this example before in other shows, never this one, and I think the CSGO audience is ready for this. But you know Victoria's Secret, don't you, Duncan? I know that.
I have heard of it.
Yeah. When you're out there buying, negligees for those Korean waifus that you have when you're out there, because obviously you have to dress them a very specific way. Obviously, like I know how it works, brother. Trust me. So what happened there was a dude. He had tried to buy some sexy underwear for his girlfriend. Found it a bit of an embarrassing and kind of daunting experience. Didn't really know where to go. So it got him thinking. Well, what if I was to make a business that would kind of reduce the embarrassment and people knew that they could go there if they specifically wanted that thing, if that was their particular peccadillo. So he studied the lingerie market for years and then borrowed $40,000, $80,000, in total, and built Victoria's Secret, which was designed to fulfill this particular niche. And he had one store in California. Now, this is right at in the late 70s. First time he made $500,000 in its first year of business. And then he expanded into 4 more stores. And then a big company came in and bought it out. And he sold it. I don't even know. I think it was he was making $6 million annually. And I think he sold it for $10 million or something. He cashed out. So from an $80,000 investment to $10 million. And this is in the early 80s. So this is fucking crazy money back then. That's $100 million or something now. But the problem was, he then subsequently had to sit back and just watch it expand. You got a Victoria's Secret in every shopping mall, in every airport, all over the fucking world. And as of 2012, it makes $6.12 billion fucking dollars annually, right? So I think a lot of people in esports are worried, legitimately worried about fucking being that guy, getting Victoria's Secreted. They fucking sell out low, and then the corporation that buys it, they take it on and make a fucking absolute fortune out of it. And this has led to some people who really ought to have sold things, not selling things. I know many team owners who are like, fuck, when we had that second esports bubble in the mid-noughties, I should have sold the fuck up. I'll never get an offer like that again. Hell, I mean, there's the NME guys in League of Legends who talked about how when they had that LCS slot, they were offered $1.2 million. I don't know how accurate that was, but that was what was reported. They were offered $1.2 million for an LCS slot, which has sort of become the ballpark figure now if you want to buy a League of Legends LCS slot. And they turned it down. And now look where they are. I'd be kicking myself every day. They effectively turned down $1 million. So I think that's a genuine fear in the industry, that people are they almost feel like they're almost torn because the money's so good, and it's way bigger than what you've got right now. But like you say, 2 years, the way esports is going, maybe it's worth double, triple, 10 times, right? But people panic. What if this is another bubble? I've heard that used a lot lately, Duncan. This is an esports bubble, and that's why everything's artificially inflated. And then in 2 years, it's all going to come crashing down again, and everyone's going to be dirt poor. Do you think we're in a bubble?
I don't necessarily think so, because actually, here's the problem with that concept is it implies that there is any business in the world that's actually based on something real, which will always be there and will never go away and will always only increase. That's a ludicrous concept in any economical model. So to me, every business to some degree is based on confidence, because that's how you get more money into it to invest. And then when you invest, it gets bigger, and then more money is attracted to more money. And that's how you get the non-endemics in. So to me, I think it obviously could go bust, much like many industries could, but I don't think it will, because it looks like to me, it's almost certain that in the next few years, you will get even bigger sponsors come into the FaZe. And so that in itself will keep it going in terms of growth, because then they'll pump even more in, because in the real world, the amount of money you pay for sponsorship dollars is like 10 times what you pay in esports. So to me, that sooner or later, that is going to happen. But obviously it could fail otherwise.
Yeah. So let's talk about one of the story, and then we'll do DreamHack. Let me see. I got a list of them here. Which one am I going to go for? Do you want to do the Echo Fox announcement?
Okay.
So Echo Fox, they're here. They were always going to expand into CSGO. My understanding is they've been trying to put this team together for a while. Sean Gares, who we know left Cloud9 in a strange set of circumstances, because it looked like he was going to leave and become their coach. That was what was being talked about. So let's be clear about this. Sean Gares was going to step down from Cloud9, become their coach. They were going to bring in a high-profile player like Get Right. And instead, what's happened is Sean Gares has stepped down, left the organization entirely, is going to go back to playing, and Cloud9 have Stewie 2K. Just putting that, like, just to show you how fucking far removed reality is from what should have probably happened. In an alternate universe, I'd actually like to see what would be happening with that Cloud9 team. In fact, fuck it, I'll ask you. In an alternate universe, what would be happening with that Cloud9 team? Sean Gares' coach, Get Right? Yeah. Is this a top contender?
It'd be definitely better than the team they have now. Now, whether it would ever win a major, that's obviously a big ask, because you are asking like a Swedish guy who's only played with Swedish guys in his career, well, and the odd Norwegian, to come in and play with all Americans and a different culture clash. But in terms of just the skills, I think that would be a really nice team. I'd like to see it play. I'd like to see how Sean Gares could adapt to being the in-game leader while being the coach. I think he's obviously one of the best candidates we have in the game for it. It would suit his style of what he's done in his career. But I have to say, the fact that things have gone the way they have right now tells me what a ridiculous fiction fans live in, where they think that Cloud9 were all the best friends and they all respected each other and loved the way each of them played. What happened is, I told you this on past episodes, people. I told you there was once a time where Sean Gares with one of the old lineups was so frustrated, he was telling me, like, I might just be time to quit. Like, I might just have to become a coach. Like, I can't keep doing this, you know? And that was before all of the stuff that you saw last year. So he was already in a position where things had to go really well for it to work out. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. If he'd retired, that's one thing. Let's say he retires. Okay, first option. You want to be the coach. I definitely don't want to be your coach. Okay, can we keep you in the organization? Maybe he's a streamer. No, I don't think I'm going to become a streamer. Well, what are you going to do then? Actually, I'm going to become a professional Counterstrike player. Oh, but wait a minute. I thought you just retired from that. No, I retired from being your fucking in-game leader and having people not listen to what I'm doing and me watching all the demos, and then I was losing the tournament and you going, well, I didn't hit my shots. You know, if things had gone differently, what I want to do is literally go and play for an almost objectively worse fucking team in a brand new startup with an owner who knows nothing about CSGO. I'd rather do all of that, may I just emphasize, than ever be in a room with you motherfuckers for another second of my life. Peace the fuck out.
Maybe Freak wasn't sharing the supplements with him anymore. Maybe I'm kidding. But yeah, you're right. I think it's fucking. It is strange. I thought
that come down is a hell of a come down, Rich.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It really is.
That's what happens, you know. You get together with a group of the lads. Things are going really well. You've known a couple of them for a while. You know, you got a crew going. Drugs start flowing, you're having a party, you know, but when that come down hits, you really start, what am I doing with that guy? I don't know if I should be doing this at this point in my life. I've got to get away from this. You go to church the next day.
Do you reckon that's why he sought out Mo? Like, he's like, someone's got to be holding in this scene. Someone's got to be holding. Mo? And he's like, listen, baby, you got to join this team, though.
I got that skins
shit.
money, baby.
I got that shit. I got what you need. He's just there with like one of them trench coats, like, what do you want, baby? What do you want, Sean? No, I don't know. But like, I thought it was fucking odd that they've ended up playing together. So look, fucking, I'll get to the full announcement. So Echo Fog, they have got their CS team. It's going to feature Mo, someone I know very well. A legend as far as I'm concerned. Sean Gares obviously is in there now. They got TCK from the old Talk lineup. Obviously, I know him from Source. I think he's he was a kind of underrated player in that team. He had some pretty good tournaments. A2Z, and then kind of the outlier in this team, who if I was being a bit cruel, I would say he was there predicated on personal relationships rather than ability. But what do I know? And that, of course, is Rix. So that's going to be their lineup. I'm not blown away by the lineup. I don't necessarily see how it's going to work in terms of chemistry, but there's certainly worse teams in America being put together, I think.
No, listen, what is the team like? Oh, the team's crap. But where do they play? North America. Where might they be playing? Turner E-League. And are there worse teams in that league? Yes, certainly. In fact, some of them for bigger organizations. So no problem there. If you want to get your foot in the door, not that terrible a lineup in all things considered, especially because, as far as I know, I would guess there was no buyouts for this because this wasn't like a big org they were coming from.
Yeah.
So I put it this way, I reckon this lineup is potentially already better than the fucking TSM lineup, and they had to pay
I think so.
Six figures to get that piece of shit lineup. So I think that's pretty decent in itself. As far as the actual lineup itself goes, first problem, no star players. Remember, Sean Gares himself is known for not being a very skilled player. So, okay, at the moment,
Yeah, I was just going to say, he's been pretty... I mean, look, okay, yeah, it's fucking streaming and pugging and all that shit, but and you can't read too much into it, but, like, he's been pretty fucking insane lately. Like, just putting that out there. I mean, obviously, will it translate into a structured game? Maybe, maybe not. But, I mean, like, I thought he was one of the stronger players, sort of, when he at the back end of Cloud9, he started to turn up and frag. And I guess that was just because he wasn't putting quite so much into it because he kind of maybe given up a little bit, as evidenced by the way he'd moved out from the team. I mean, I agree with you. Should Sean Gares be a top-level fragger in a team? No. Does he seem to have the capability to actually be able to pop fucking heads when he wants to? It apparently seems yes. It makes me wonder what
that's also what we saw from Pronax, though, when things started to go south a little bit in Fnatic. Suddenly his fragging game picked up, because it's true. Once people stop listening to what you're saying, you're like, well, fuck it, I'll just start fragging as well then. Try and win the round that way. The problem with this lineup, though, is the firepower, first and foremost. Like I say, there's no player in this lineup who's like a top 10 NA player. Well, that's a problem right there. Okay, so Mo was a good player. Problem is, last time he was a good top competitive player would have been like, what, 6 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, like, he hasn't played for a long, long time and certainly hasn't played anywhere near the top in CSGO, like, at all, really. So, yeah, you are going back a while, but I don't know. I always think he's got the tools that he'll always be a functionally good AWPer. Like, he'll always be above average. And he's a motivator. He's good to play in a team with. When it's working, of course, not quite so much when it isn't. But equally as well, think about it. If we're going on to TV with this team, Mo's box office, let's be fucking real about it.
Sure, he's a great streamer, sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of actually doing work in the server, if that's like a tenuous star, you're in trouble for firepower already. You don't even have anyone established. A2Z guy is okay. I've never even understood why he was ever brought up at any point in time. Wasn't some like super duper player, even 1.6. I actually think the best player in this team, in terms of context, is actually TCK, because he was. A lot of people forget he was in the Quantic team that was before Complexity, where it was Hiko, it was Semphis, it was Frost, it was Dazed, and it was TCK. And TCK was a pretty smart player. He seemed like a good role player. Just played well within a team player type guy. So that's good. The Rix guy is just like a new gun. I haven't really seen that much impressive from him, really. He wasn't like blowing my mind when he was in Tempo Storm. Obviously, he's been around a few lineups now. Yeah, the big problem with this lineup is
goes back away in Source as well, which I know obviously that's like Thorin's blind spot. The entire, like, fuck Source. I get it, but like he played in a few respectable American lineups in Source as well.
So the big issue for me is the only hope they have right now is that everyone is on board with whatever Sean Gez wants to do tactically, and that he really can like do a really good job, and maybe he can be one of those in-game leaders. Because that's the thing about some of the great ones that people don't realize is that certain in-game leaders, you can give them almost any lineup. Like Godby had some amazing lineups in 1.6, but at the very end, he had like a couple that he was leading like for 1 or 2 events or whatever that were like kind of ragtag, but he just had such a good system. He could make them seem decent. Like they could suddenly compete. It's actually something that Lopez was famously pretty good for. He could have like some players that were just like half decent ones, and he would at least have proper tactics, and he would have a basic playbook. And if people followed it, they would be better than the team would be if they just tried to frag. So if Sean Guest can do that, I think that can help them. It can maybe elevate them to above where we're thinking now. But put it this way, if they go into E-League with this lineup, I'll bet almost anything they don't finish top 4.
No, I mean, I think again, without knowing who the lineups for E-League are going to be, I still think it's a safe bet to say that, because we've obviously got the European teams coming in. I think there's going to be some changes in the NA scene. Looks like we're going to be having some announcements definitively in the not too distant future. But what I saw at the minor, for example, like I paid a lot of attention to NME, and I think they've got a lineup that could actually sort of break into that top 4 in NA. And I would probably say, just in terms of individual skill, with the likes of Kuster in there, I'd be more inclined to lean towards that being a team that could beat a lineup like this, for example. But, bar 1 or 2 tweaks. And I think there probably will be some roster changes along the way. But the main thing is to get registered for E-League and get in there. And obviously, that's why we're seeing all these American lineups kind of come up all of a sudden. And a lot of people are left scratching their head going, why the fuck's he playing with him? Why does this team exist, But
I have got a good anecdote for you, Rich, actually, that I don't think I've told on the show about Rix. So I actually do have something to say about him. So when we were doing CEVO, I think it was season 8. I think it was the one that Virtus Pro won over mousesports, the one that was like after the major. When we were doing this event, there was a point at time where it was like I think it was at the very end of one of the days, and it was a match. I think I would have to guess it was Conquest Dignitas if it was one of the games at the end of the day or something. And when you get to the very end at that point, especially like that, where we were getting like 3 map series, you're so tired that like, when you have to fill, you have to just come up with anything in your fucking brain. Like sometimes you have to just start talking about stuff that's nothing to do with the game.
Yeah.
Just because at that point you're filling, like they're telling you, just give us 5 more minutes, guys. So you're coming up with any little factoid you can get, any little detail, any little theory. So I remember that I famously actually said, and the thing about, of course, this character Stanislaw in Conquest is that he used to go under the name Rix.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Obviously, he didn't. They're 2 separate people.
Yeah.
But what's funny is I actually went back and looked that up. Like, well, since obviously people told me, no, you're wrong. So I was like, it's weird. So I went back and I looked it up. And what happened was, Rich, in Conquest, Rix was on the team. Then he was released. Then they got Stanislaw. So what my brain's done there is it's got 90% of the story right, Rich. It's gone. This lineup used to have a guy called Rix in it. Now it's like almost the same lineup, but it's got this guy Stanislaw in it. He's probably just changed his name, hasn't he? So that'll be an interesting factoid. Hit him with this little fact off a lollipop. And I did, and obviously it wrecked me. But you have to realize, everyone watching, suck a dick. You've never done an event and worked 14 hours a day and had to come up with stuff all the time and then have every single piece broken down into like court transcriptions and then studied by like the fucking monks and like tested for its like theological efficacy in the universe. Like, we're just making shit up some of the time.
Don't tell him that. That's my whole secret.
Believe it or not, I don't even think Fox is the worst player in CSGO.
Yeah, it's like.
But if anyone Portuguese is in the chat, Corralho, Fox is shit, you are shit. See if it had the effect. Did it have the effect, Rich?
Let's see. But here's the thing: like, I'm sure I remember Rix from like pugging in Counterstrike Source. I'm pretty sure I saw him in some like mixed lineups with Mo in Source. But people are telling me he wouldn't touch Source. He's a 1.6 player. Now, are there 2 Rixes? Am I thinking of Stanislaw? Like, what's happening? But I don't know. But I'm sure I saw him playing in some lineups with Mo and Source. But maybe
I thought he was in 1.6 as well. Like I thought.
Yeah, no. He definitely did play 1.6. Okay. I remember him obviously primarily from Source because that's what I was writing about at the time. But then again, that could just be a fucking illusion. It's a long time ago. Back when Mo was like playing decent level Source, back going up against fucking Glocketeer and all that drama and shit. So like, it's a fucking long time ago. So I could be wrong. I mean, if I'm wrong, fuck it, I don't care. I'm like you, right? Just break it down, put it in your court transcripts, and then We'll all wait for the next video about it from Clive. Did you see that, by the way?
No, what happened?
Oh, he did a video apparently, like saying that me and you having like we peddle a narrative and we have an agenda. He did a video about it. Like his video's gonna get 200 views. I'm almost like tempted to link it because I just feel so bad for him.
Okay.
Like he's clearly living in his like parents' house with like an ankle tag on, and he can never leave. You know, for things.
Copy of Catcher in the Rye, his favorite book, on the sidebar. You like that reference?
Yeah, pretty good, pretty good. So yeah, but he was like saying that we're all friends, like all of us analysts.
Bill Cosby was really hard done by.
Yeah, I'm just waiting to see what comes out in court, mate. Yeah, basically, I guess it's kind of bad now because I have said we are all friends in this scene, just in this very show. But he actually said that because we're all friends, what we do is we get together in bars and we say, hey, wouldn't it be great if we all got together and said this week NIP is shit? And that's like what we do.
See, Rich, I remember at the major, which, like I have said on many times, was the best talent lineup I've ever seen, and all people who loved working with each other, love each other. I remember an argument that practically almost came to blows between DDK and fucking Henry G over how good Nip are.
Yeah, that was intense, wasn't it?
And if there's two people you don't expect a fight from, or even any sort of intense rivalry, it's fucking DDK and Henry G, right? They're the most, like, lethargic motherfuckers you've ever met.
To be fair, when DDK goes in, he fucking goes in, mate.
Can't say anything truer than that.
You definitely can't. And I think, to be honest, I think the NIP thing was a bit of a sideshow. I think DDK was saying double denim simply doesn't work. And I think Henry was also talking about wearing a monocle for like one of the broadcasts or something
like that, right?
Yeah, and it just
I believe.
Yeah, just tilted DDK hard, like so. So anyway, yeah. So you should check that video out, like, because it's fucking. It'll blow your mind, like, it'll blow your mind. But apparently, we all plan this shit, and we're all politically setting an agenda to rip on people that we hate, which it's not true. It's not true. But anyway, Echo Fox. I think it's good to see them in the scene. I like Rick Fox. You're a basketball fan. I think he gets hard done by. You know, like he's in that three-peat team. There was no bad players there.
I mean, here's the thing. The fact that he owns the team is a good thing. Like, he actually seems like quite a reasonable person. Obviously has a background in sports, knows about being in winning teams and stuff. So it's true. Along the lines of the thing you said about FaZe, basically, if these people really do want to put enough resources in, unless they get like the worst luck with con men of the wrong people as managers and coaches and all the rest, eventually you figure out they are going to eventually get someone who's like the right coach and the right like structure around the people, and then they're going to take care of the players. And so ideally they are going to give the players the best chance to succeed. And whether the players can do it in the server, that's another matter. At the end of the day, the players have to win the games. But I do think these people are good in that sense. It's good for the industry that they come in.
Yeah.
And they don't seem in any way shady, you know.
No, exactly. And he's part of a charity for like changing perceptions about gamers and stuff. He's always been a vocal proponent of gaming. It's not like a fake thing, you know. It's not like your boy Shaq talking about, you know, how much he games and then puts his name on something like Shaq Fu. One of the like just an absolute slithering abortion of a fucking game, like so. Right, let's talk about DreamHack Leipzig. We didn't really talk about it because it was ongoing, wasn't it? Last show we did, I think it just started. So we'll get into it. But first and foremost, just to show how petty I am, right? Just to show how petty and miserable, and I like to think consistency is important, and logic is important, and facts are important. But it'll get filed under pettiness, under P for pettiness, P for prick, right? All the P's. So let's just get that out there. The security breach, homie. You see that shit?
No, that's ridiculous. I mean, the sad thing is, this is a very minor incident. Like, this is just people being idiots, and they themselves aren't probably doing it in any malicious way. But when you consider, when these people came up and bumped into Vendetta, he wasn't even looking that way.
Yeah.
So that means while we were talking on a desk, someone would just come in and punch you in the back of the head, basically. And you would have no way to stop it in any way, and it would just happen. Not only that, it happened on camera. Brilliant, right? That's obviously unacceptable. There has to be something in place to stop that sort of thing.
But I mean, it's happened to you before, right? When the DreamHack winter, the first major, you were on stage, and some dude, it turned out to be a YouTuber, one I'd never seen, but he just literally came up on stage through the back way and stood there like, what was he, holding a mic or something, stroking his chin, and just stood there.
He was just trying to be awkward, basically, to make whatever his video was going to be. The part I don't get is, the reason why that was confusing when it happened is that at no point while he was doing any of that did anyone ever come out and actually tell him to get the fuck off the stage and out of the camera production. Yeah. Apparently all of DreamHack were just like, oh, interesting. Who is he? Is he on Titan? I wonder what he's going to say. So it was like unreal. I was stood there like, what the fuck's going on?
You know, and I've been at numerous DreamHack events where it's like, you do see people backstage and you're in a green room and you're like, well, who's this person? And you might strike up a conversation with them and they'll be like, oh, we're just visiting. Just wanted to see how things are happening, like backstage. You're like, well, what do you do? Are you a manager? Are you a player? Oh, no, I work for Schlobberty.com. And you're like, all right, brilliant. Yeah, like, never heard of them. And there's just randoms there.
See, I've had that problem before. One time I was backstage and I was going to get an energy drink and I saw this guy rummaging around like near the bags. I was like, who are you? And he goes, I'm in the Alliance, and I raised my fist, but then he goes, for blind children, just collecting for chat. And I went, see, you never know who you're going to get back here, guys. I'll tell you what, you get one warning, now get the fuck out of it.
But obviously, this is all linked to all the shit that happened with me and Loader backstage. And again, I stress, me and Loader don't have any issues. There's no beef there. If I saw him at another event, I'd fucking buy him a drink. There was talk that I didn't go to the event in Belarus because Alliance were playing. That's bullshit. That's never been said. It's never been a stipulation. No one really cares about it. It was.
You didn't go to that event because it was in Belarus, right?
Yeah, exactly right. That was pretty much it, right? No, because I was in America. I didn't want to travel that far. Yeah. I was in Ohio, the Belarus of America, and I didn't kind of. The major's gone. It's gone. And I kind of felt why would I want to travel to see the same stuff? So why would I do that? 14 hours on a plane or whatever it was. So anyway, there I was. And no one's said anything about it. No one's ever come up to me and been like, oh, Richard, you can't do events. Loader's going to be there. Alliance is going to be there. This is the rumor that's sort of propagating. The only people that really have made a big deal about this are DreamHack themselves, ultimately. I feel, it was a topical story for a while, but like everyone else in the industry is like, it's one of those daft things that happen. You've been in the scene a long time. You'll have seen flare-ups, people pushing each other, shoving, people threatening to fight each other. There's numerous YouTube videos of players doing it. I used to go to UK lands. Every time there was a knockout game, there was a threat of a fight. People pushing each other, getting in each other's faces. It just is what it is. It's never been a big deal. So obviously it looks like I've got an agenda. But I was very surprised that DreamHack wouldn't at least release a statement about it, because there is, on a serious note, there is a security concern there. There is a security concern there. Like you say, right? Me and you, we say inflammatory things. Sometimes we mean them. Okay, pretty much every time we mean them. But, there's that little bit of showmanship where we just play. We could really, we do that to make a broadcast entertaining. So I don't want to take a risk of saying something inflammatory if I think like a Fox fan could just come behind, put a fucking ice pick in my brain on camera. My family are going to have to watch that, right? And deal with that. Obviously, it'll be the most upvoted video on fucking YouTube.
But you know what, Rich? Finally, you'll get to appear in Faces of Death, your favorite series from the 90s, right?
I love it, mate. Reference game on point. I do love it. I do love it. Unlike Slasher, who just appears in Faces of Meth. Edgy. Too edgy, perhaps. But anyway, so with the Loader thing, they couldn't move quick enough to get a statement out. They couldn't move quick enough. Like, me and Loader had to have this back and forth fucking consultation about what the statement was going to say and would we both sign up on it, and they wanted it out ASAP. So we did it, right? Like, with nothing about this, of course, because there's no sacrificial lamb. There's no one to throw under a bus. This is now clearly just a DreamHack failing. There is no statement about it. So I don't know. I don't know how the talent guys feel about it, but if that had happened to me, if I was like, I mean, obviously not Yanko. Yanko doesn't give a fuck. Like, I was waiting for Yanko. Like.
By the way, that's also. I'm almost not even joking when I say this. That's also another bad thing, Richard. If you think it's bad, the scenario where the fan comes in and punches someone, what if someone like Yanko, who comes from a totally different culture, What if they come in and then he's now on camera punching someone? He can now even get sued for that. Like all the problems that can exist that just shouldn't even be a concern for anyone. So I like DreamHack, but just fucking sort shit like that out. That should not be going on for your talent, you know.
Yeah, it definitely shouldn't, and I think it's part of an ongoing. I think it's part of an ongoing problem that we've alluded to numerous times, which we've been trying to be professional about. But now it's there for everyone to see, and DreamHack are fucking very conspicuous by their silence on this matter. You know, where's the reassurance to future talent, which obviously will never be me. And I think I've proven I don't really give a fuck. If someone gets in my face, I'm getting you the fuck out my face. End of story. Like that's just how it has to be. Like if security aren't going to do their job, and it's a choice between getting hit or not getting hit, I'm going to go for not getting hit. I'm old-fashioned. I know that's not a popular thing to say, but that's my opinion on it. Like, I'd rather not get hit, thank you, if that's all the same to everyone. But, you know, I think they've got to at least say something to assure talent going back. You know, like, hey, we're going to have improved security. You know, you're going to be safe here. You know, because otherwise it's ridiculous. It's too much. So anyway, the event itself, we had a clear victor, but I don't want to talk about them just yet. I want to talk about Luminosity and how they continue to be on this upward trajectory. Very impressive. Another final for them. Another one where they couldn't seal the deal. Perhaps disappointing. But let's just talk about the team overall first, about how, you know, when they announced this new lineup with FNX and Taco coming in, just before DreamHack Winter, like 1 or 2 days before the event, we spent the entire first day saying, well, Luminosity, you're gone done, fucked yourself. We weren't even sure that, just in terms of talent, it was a good decision. And we said it was actually a bad decision in terms of timing. Well, they got to the final of that event. And here they are, and they've done it again. So is it now safe to say that Luminosity Gaming are a top 5 team with this lineup?
Yeah, I mean, I've put my new rankings out today, and they're actually 4th overall when I looked at the sum total of the results and who they beat in best of threes. Because one of the things you have to point out about it as well is that with how CSGO tournaments were in the past, there were a number of tournaments, like, for example, the old school DreamHacks, where you'd play these best of 1 group stage, and then only the semis and the final were the best of 3s. So you could get top 4 finish, which sounds sick on paper. Oh, you're top 4, but you might have only won 1 best of 1 over a good team, and then 1 best of 1 over a bad team, and that got you to the semis, and then you lost in the semis. So that top 4 sounds way less impressive than some of the results that Luminosity is even having, where they're not winning events, but the amount of best of 3 series they've racked up is fucking insane. I mean, they've beaten, like, the list is ridiculous. Envious, NIP, TSM, Na'Vi. This one, they beat Astralis. They basically, at this point, Virtus Pro don't even fucking show up to an event where this team's at. Like, right now, they'll fucking spank you and add you to the hit list. Like, the only teams they haven't beaten, basically, is Fnatic and, in a best of 3, is Fnatic and Virtus Pro. They're the only elite level teams in the whole world they haven't beaten so far. It's pretty insane.
I think it's interesting because you said you put them 4th. And, you know, obviously in the past, like, I don't know why Brazilian fans hated you for some reason. I saw you put a tweet out where you actually praised coldzera, saying this is why you shouldn't overhype people, because when they do a godlike level of performance, there's nowhere for you to go. People tunneled in on the word overhype. I mean, like, you know, Coralho or whatever it is, like Brazilian for kill yourself, whatever that is. I don't know. And you got a lot of negativity. Now it seems the Brazilian fans are loving you, Duncan, almost as if they were fickle.
It's funny, isn't it? It's funny how that thing's... Funny how players who say that analysts don't know shit never say that when the analyst says that they're really good and they're some of the best in the world. They go, this guy knows what he's talking about. He's bang on point. I don't know what it is. He's turned the corner on this.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I remember that specific criticism about you a lot. Like, I don't know if it was the Cloud9 guys, but it was like, oh, you used to put out great content back in the day. When we were off your radar and you weren't talking about us. Used to love you back then. Don't know what's happened since then. You've changed. And it's like, obviously, you haven't changed. You're the same old asshole you've always been. It's you've changed. The other guy's feelings have got hurt. And now the way they perceive you has changed. Yeah, and obviously, like, I'm no stranger to that as well. But I mean, back to the team, this is the real deal, right? I mean, they can kick on and maybe win a tournament in 2016.
Yeah, especially because like, obviously, the main match at this last tournament that you look at and you're impressed by is the fact that they almost did beat Na'Vi and almost did actually win the title. And obviously, Na'Vi right now is incredibly good. So that was really impressive. And obviously, they had beaten Na'Vi at Starladder. So you look at that and you go, wow, it's so sick. But you have to realize, to get there, they just went up against Astralis and just 2-0'd them. And it was like, I think one was like 16-8 was Train. Train's a fucking good map for Astralis. They've won like the last 3 times they played on it. Then the other one was 16-12 on Overpass. Again, another map that Astralis can be fantastic on. That was the one that they 16-0 Team Liquid on. So this was no joke, this series, and they just cruised through that one. And then they took Na'Vi to the very fucking limit, almost won a title. So I have to say, at the moment, I wouldn't necessarily bet that they'll win a championship eventually. I think they can. Like, if they have one of these sick tournaments where it all goes right, I think they could. Like, they could do the storybook ending, you know, when in the final they have a great match as well. But it seems pretty certain that they're going to be a top 5 team for the next like 3-4 months.
Yeah. What about the Taco problem? I feel like there's been a lot of people saying, oh, if they just kick Taco, they'll be an amazing team. They'll be able to win tournaments. It's all Taco's fault. Taco's bad. Fallen even had to come out and basically defend Taco, saying, look, we're not going to kick anyone. People are doing their jobs. This is how it is. And I'm getting shades of Fiflaren all over again with this, where it's like the statistically weakest player is singled out, and we're pretending that if you were to remove him and put somebody else in, it would somehow miraculously make the team better. Now, I know you were perhaps a proponent for removing Fiflaren back in the day. Would you make the same argument here that Taco needs to go, or do you think actually people are being a bit OTT about it?
Well, the key point is I was only a proponent of removing Fiflaren when it got to the stage where they were coming last place at fucking LAN tournaments. Like I've always said, if a team's winning, then you stick with it for a while. You see how that goes, and you see what the factors can be that can be the problem. So when Fiflaren was winning for the first, like, let's say, like 2 years, I had no problem then because they were still winning. They're still a fantastic team. But when they start to lose, you have to do something at that point in time anyway. So that's when it makes sense to. It's true, Taco has had a lot of bad games in this lineup. When you consider, normally when a team has this sort of hot lineup and hot run of wins, normally your stats get inflated. You have a really good tournament, and you can even be like sort of ride the coattails of some sick player, so you get super nice stats for the tournament. He's almost never done that, basically. And crucially, he's had a couple of like real blunders where he's had like one round or two where he's really fucked up for the team and, you know, like peaked at the wrong time or like just gotten killed too easily. He has really fucked up a few times. With that said, I wouldn't change anything about this team right now because no one even knows what the ceiling is for this team yet. We need at least like 3 or 4 more tournaments till we know if they're going to, for all I know, maybe they level off a bit below this and they're like the 6th best team and they're still pretty good, but they don't always go so ham. So we still have to see where the team's at. It's way too new. I would definitely not be doing any moves. And also there's no obvious person to pick up. Like, there's skilled players, but one of the great things about this team in a weird way is that Taco can play badly because they have almost every other role fucking nailed to the wall. They have Cold Zero, who's this sick passive player who cleans up all the frags. It's really good in 1v1s. Then they have Fur, who's getting back to his form of being a really good entry fragger. Then they have Fallen, who's like an entry fragger and the fucking in-game leader and the primary AWPer. Then they have FNX, who just wins clutches for fun all the time and has like pretty decent rifle performance. At that point in time, you can get away with having someone who doesn't frag everyone, basically.
Yeah. I've been hugely impressed with him. I think it can't be understated, and I don't want to repeat things we said in past broadcasts, but like just Fallen, the way he's marshaled this team, put this together, it is ridiculous. I saw you followed up on your tweet and things we've talked about on the show by doing a YouTube video about why Fallen's the best in-game leader. Do you want to give us a summary of why that is?
I mean, the basic summary is he's got the complete package. Like, a lot of in-game leaders are good in different areas. Like, I've always famously said, one of the really good things about Sean Gers is he's good at, like, figuring out anti-strats for the opponent, having a playbook. So the problem is he's a tactician. He's not a leader in the sense of, like, leading men and, like, keeping people's morale up, keeping people in line. Fallen is all of this. He's got, like, the best tactics. He's a fucking sick player for an in-game leader. On top of that, he like built his whole scene up to even get these players. He's been amazing at recruiting players. Every recruitment's been better and better and better. And now we're at the point where he's also some like amazing father figure to all these fucking players in his team. So what more do you want at this point? He's doing everything, right?
Yeah. There's a player in Brazil who I'm sure you're familiar with called Henny. with a 1, HEN1. He's an AWPer, had some amazing performances of late. I've seen him do some ridiculous things. Now, the latest theory to create the Brazilian super team would be somehow to transition Henny into this lineup, I would imagine most likely for Taco. And I guess this isn't completely implausible because if you remember back, I think it was when they had ZQK, I think it was, in the Luminosity lineup, he was actually AWPing and Fallen was on a rifle. I think Fallen picking up the AWP again, which is what he's used primarily throughout his career, has been one of the reasons why the team has improved so much. One of the many reasons. But is there this Henny guy seems like the real fucking deal? Is that something that you can envision? Much the same way we often used to theorize what would happen if Simple joined Na'Vi. If there was a way you could accommodate this guy in this team, how would it?
So here's the reason why I suspect he won't join is because it's not like Fallen is unaware of this guy. Because actually, when here's the thing, everyone only really knows this core lineup when they went to the MLG and they got the upset over Cloud9. That's when it started rolling. But they actually existed before that. They were at ESWC in 2014 and they were called Kaboom back then. And at that tournament, they actually had Henny in their lineup. In fact, the lineup then had Henny and FNX in it, along with Fur and Forgiven. So Fallen rather. And Fur and Fallen. So as a result, the fact that FNX went out the lineup, Henny went out the lineup, but then eventually they got FNX back, and then they chose to get Taco, and they've chosen to get different players rather than that guy, suggests to me that, at least for Fallen, it's not the right pickup to do. Like, I mean, he's been aware of this guy the whole time, and if he'd really wanted him back in the lineup, he could have done so. Like, for example, you're saying here about the ZQK thing. Well, in that scenario, since he already knows who Henny is, if he really wanted an AWP, he could have just gone at that point and got him right, and he could have stayed as like another player. So, I mean, on paper, I know why people are saying it, because that guy had like one good tournament in Games Academy when they were at the
RGN?
I think it was RGN, yeah.
It was RGN, he was sick, yeah.
So, because he had a good tournament there, as usual, people are trying to play like, well, who is the next best player I could put in the lineup? Problem is, I just don't really see what the logic would be right now. So, especially because, as you say, if he's an AWPer, I mean, Fallen's pretty sick AWPer as well, so I don't even know how that would work.
Yeah, it turns out. Right, okay, so let's get back to DreamHack Leipzig. Na'Vi were the winners. Fairly comprehensive performance. Flamey had a great tournament overall. Definitely showed up in the final against Luminosity, where he even eclipsed Cold Zero. Now, we've talked about Na'Vi. It kind of felt like they were a little bit all over the place, and we know they've had some recent disappointments. You were there in Belarus to witness it yourself. You know, in the Fnatic final, which was pretty one-sided, all told. Do you feel that we're seeing a better Na'Vi here, like in 2016, than perhaps we've seen before? That is this a Na'Vi that's gonna actually go on and start, you know, dominating tournaments, maybe even topple Fnatic off their, you know, kind of lofty mantle?
The big problem right now is that their kryptonite is Fnatic. They could beat anyone else in the world. They can beat all these other teams out there. So the big problem if you're Na'Vi is Fnatic wins every tournament. So eventually you have to play Fnatic because they will be in the final, even if you're on the other side of the bracket. So the big problem for me in terms of Na'Vi is just that. Like, I don't know yet whether they can beat Fnatic because they seem to have a mental block there as well because they tend to play worse against them. Now, with that said, they are so good against everyone else that they might not even have to worry about that. Because, for example, if Envious was to beat Fnatic and put them out of the tournament, well, I've already seen Na'Vi kick the shit out of Envious twice now. So I know Na'Vi can beat Envious. I suspect if they played TSM again, it would be a very nice series. Well, they're now called Astralis. Yeah. I know versus VP, they always matched up quite well. So right now, and Luminosity obviously is a great back and forwards rivalry. So yeah, Na'Vi certainly can be a team that wins tournaments, with the caveat if Fnatic doesn't just keep winning every single tournament. So I think they're right up there. For me, they're like, I think it's fair to call them the second best team right now. I think that's reasonable because Envious has had so many problems.
Yeah, and Envious have had problems, no doubt about it. I mean, what's really stood out for you? What's been the change with Na'Vi? I mean, Guardian is fucking Guardian. There's just like, he's just imperious at the moment, and he's carried on the form he had at the end of 2015 into 2016. No issues there. I mean, for me, the standout is that we're starting to see a level of consistency from Flamey now. Whereas before he'd have that one tournament and then maybe he wouldn't be present at the next one. Actually, Flamey has kind of jumped ahead of Seized in the pecking order now in terms of who you can rely on for a performance, and Flamey's like actually pulling out some fucking incredible rounds just in terms of raw fragging ability.
Yeah, I think there's two factors. One is if you look at the timeline of when Navi got like consistently really good. Before they were really good, but they were just like super explosive. They either direct you or they could just get beaten by a bunch of teams. When they got really consistently good was actually around the time when Starix took over being the in-game leader, rather than Zeus being the in-game leader and Starix just being a coach for Flamey or whatever the fuck he used to do. Yeah. And you notice Flamey, it's true. Flamey was mega inconsistent. Like I always said to people, go back and look at the stats, go back and watch the games, and you'll find in 2015, there's 2 tournaments where he's like an MVP, he dominates, and that's it. The other tournaments, he's just okay, and he has a good game, and he has a bad game. Sometimes he has the bad game at the wrong time, and you get fucked up in the final. Now, in the space of the last like 3 tournaments, or something like that, he's had like 2 really sick performances. Yeah, so that's a very good sign. That's a way they put the frequency between his mega performances way down there. So obviously he's not going to do it every tournament, but if he can do this, or even at that sort of a rate, they're going to be an incredibly dangerous team for everyone.
One of the other storylines that I think we should talk about is Astralis. Obviously, it was their first outing as this new organization, this kind of experiment they're doing where we've got a manager and 5 players as a team owner. And a lot of people were like, well, you know, how's it going to be? Will this somehow lift them out of the doldrums where they've been in? Will this resolve some of the issues they've had with choking and blah, blah, blah? Well, it was a good run. They came up against Luminosity. Lost the best of 3 there. Device certainly doesn't seem to be playing on the same level he was at the end of 2015, where we were even debating about, was he the best player in the world, pound for pound now? Has he knocked Olaf Meister off his perch? What did you make of Astralis' run here? Is it too early to start making some assessments, or do we need to say that actually that the problems they've got, they're not just going to disappear just because you change name, change organization?
Yeah, the big problem, I think, is that here's the biggest problem with Astralis is they're not bad enough. Like if you're bad, naturally, eventually, I mean, I realize Nip will be like, wasn't aware that was a rule. If you're bad enough for long enough, you have to change your player eventually, or you have to do something to fix the problem. Astralis is just good enough on that fucking cusp that they can play close with really amazing teams and they can beat nearly all the lower teams below them, but they're not going anywhere else. Like they're not like here's the thing. The old Na'Vi, before they had Starix as the game leader, the great thing about them was they were around the kind of ranking that Astralis was at, but the fact that they were inconsistent was a good thing, because it meant they could be inconsistent and go fucking ham and win the whole tournament. At the moment, no one would bet on Astralis to win any of these tournaments. They look like they will consistently lose a really nice game to a top team and then go out top 4, or maybe if they had the perfect bracket, get to the final. It doesn't look at the moment like they'll win a tournament. And one of the main reasons is what you're saying, Device. Because the thing is, it looked like when they started to choke initially, he was one of the main offenders. Then he picked it up around the ESL, ESEA Pro League. But these last 2 tournaments have been pretty underwhelming. Like Starladder was okay. He had maps where he was good. It was okay. This last one was worse for me because he was playing, in theory, a lower level of competition in the field. Like, Luminosity aren't the most skilled team in the whole fucking world. So if you're getting really beat up against them, I mean, you can't really be one of the best players in the world anymore, probably. And against the overall field, I mean, if I tell you you're going to play against Dignitas and Mouz, if you're someone who's like a top player who's in a struggle, that's when you start padding your fucking stats and going ham and going, oh, I did have a good overall for the tournament, right? And then I'm supposed to look and go, well, you did play mousesports for New Line. No, instead he's just doing okay, doing decently in these games. So that's a concern for them. But I think they've got bigger problems than just Device. Like, I mean, you've seen map pools all over the place.
Yep.
They lose all the close games, which suggests like it's not even just choking anymore. It's more like when they're in the tight situations, there's something wrong with the team. Maybe they don't trust the tactics. Maybe people choking as much as they get tense and they just don't play the way they normally do. Whatever it is, right now, you'd bet all your money that they wouldn't win tournaments.
So
but they're still okay. You know?
Yeah. So the final couple of storylines I want to talk about is revolving around mousesports. Now, Gobby came out and did a video recently talking about why he left and how he wanted to stay, and he turned down really good offers to stay, and then the team were like, actually, we want you to go. And then he was like, hey, about those offers. And it was fuck. He'd been fucked right over. And now he's in NA, I think, with NRG, playing with players that are, inarguably weaker than the ones in the mousesports lineup. Now, two things have been happening within Mouse Sports, and there's some statistical data that I can bring for one of them, and that is that it was there's a big thread on Reddit about it, but it's over on unicorn.com, where basically Chris J had a 75% success rate on entry frags. And maintained a 1.36 rating overall just for kills. He was one of the reasons why they almost beat Astralis when it went to OT. And he had like 15 entry kills overall in the tournament. There's a great video of him absolutely, I think it was Neo, I think absolutely wrecked him with just a quick peek and thing, and kill. Now, Chris J, for me, we've talked about it a lot. Like, I think he is one of the big LAN performers for this team now, and is one of the stars in this roster. One of the he definitely doesn't deserve to be playing in a team that's performing this badly. Now, the what's happened at the other end for Mouse Sports is, do you remember there was this German dude, and everyone was saying that he was going to be the next big rifle star, and like the German shocks and all of this stuff? Forget his name now. Nex, I think it was. It was something like that. What the fuck happened to him?
That's the big question, isn't it? Because what was great about Mouse Sports was they used to be one of those perfect storyline teams where they would be like Astralis now. They'd do well, they'd play well against a better opponent, they'd lose the game like they should. Godby would have called some good strats. Sometimes he'd even called the right tactic, but they lost. So you could still be like, well, you know, props to you. You did what you could. Nex would always have a great game, and you'd go, well, you are like a future star. Like, I like where this is all heading. But then the whole story got really complicated and became like quite a terrible one, which is Nico came in, and everyone was like, well, will he even be able to fit in the team? No, he was fitting in great. He's doing absolutely sick. But then the whole team goes to shit. Next starts playing terribly. They kick Godby, and now what the fuck are they left with? It's like a bad fucking mixed team.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Like, obviously, it's been great for Nico. Like, he's fucking
sure, yeah.
I mean, he's like kind of become the star along with Chris J. But I don't know. I mean, is it a case that Godby was doing something that maybe Nex wasn't even aware of? Like, he was being utilized in a way, or because I am at a loss to explain how this guy that I was like, you know, he's fucking mustard. He's the real deal. Like, can be playing so averagely. Like, to put it in context, like statistically, he was in line with like Spiddy for this tournament.
No, the part that doesn't make sense is it's not. Here's the thing: it's not that he was like Guardian and he would just drop 30 every time. It's more like the kills he did get also just looked amazing. Like he might get the 20 kills, but he'd have somewhere like his aim would look fucking insane. So you'd be like, well, if you got that level of skill, if anything, you're going to polish your game off and you're going to get even better. But actually, like you say, he's just been a flash in the pan, basically. He had like a good, let's say, 7 months, 6 months, maybe even less than that. Let's say 5 months, to be fair. We'll give him a generous 5 months. He had a good 5 months, that's it. And that ended a few months back now. So it's not looking good for him.
Is he the next Freiburg?
I mean, I don't think you should bestow that title upon anyone, mate. There's still a Freiburg out there, so there'll never be another Freiburg, Rich.
You're such a prick. So there are all the storylines from.
I've got one more I want to bring up, though.
All right, go for it. You do it.
So if we wreck people, deservedly so, we have to obviously give them props. Yeah, so at this LAN, the reason why Dignitas played in the semi-finals is because Kirby actually went ham at this LAN. Yeah. Like, he had a game against Virtus Pro that was like unreal, mate. He had like 45 kills in an overtime game with like, well, not like 45 kills in 40 deaths, like 25 deaths or something mad, you know. Like, he actually went mental in this game. It was really, and overall for the whole tournament, towards the end he cooled off a little bit, but he had a pretty good tournament. So I have to say, for someone who in the past, it's funny, was a choker on LAN, was always underwhelming on LAN, I'm actually really impressed that somehow AZ and Pimp leaving his team, who were the two best players in his team, has now put him in a position where he's like, oh, right, someone has to actually fucking win us these games, and he's actually going ham, so respect.
Yeah, I mean, and to put it in context, I think Kirby was above Cold Zero in terms of frags this tournament.
Surely not. Corralho, you liar.
Yeah, Coralho. What's it they like to chant to people? You will die or something?
Yeah,
you will die. That. You will die. So there you go. So that was DreamHack Leipzig. What overall, any final thoughts about the tournament before we move on and leave it behind?
The thing about this tournament was it was a really good tournament to see where like the middle of the pack and the just entering the elite teams were. Because obviously you didn't have Fnatic and you didn't have Envious. So without those teams, it was never going to be like some blockbuster where like whoever wins this, oh, the implications are they could be the best in the world, blah, blah, blah. No, not really. In fact, if anything, this tournament for me really was like, okay, Na'Vi, you did great against all those really elite teams, but they are not this team tournament now. So you better win this tournament if you want to show me you really are like super sick. And they did legit. And obviously Luminosity showed a good performance, but it was like a cool tournament because once you got past the top 2 names, it was really stacked, but it wasn't some, you'll never be the biggest tournament unless you at least have like Fnatic or Envy as one of the two, I think.
Yeah. So final bit of news, and then we'll wrap up the show because obviously we've got to go do Unfiltered, and we'll want to take a little break between and prepare for controversy. I imagine, just prepare for controversy. And Chairman said he's going to make it as easy as possible for you to be on the show. He's only going to ask you constant questions about economics, geopolitics. So yeah, it should be all good. So anyway, let's just see. Yeah. Oskarish leaving CSGOLounge. I don't think it's a surprise that after they missed out on their opportunity to go to the Turner League and the road to Vegas, don't think it's a big surprise that there is some roster changes being made. But I'm surprised it's this chap that's leaving because I felt he was like the raw talent they were looking to develop. You remember Lord was saying that he was going to develop all this youth and he was going to give them the skills. Well, he's been removed. And the reason is that apparently he's not ready to compete at a top level due to his lack of experience. So that seems a bit counterproductive, a bit counterintuitive. What do you make of it?
If I'm being honest, I think the real reason they've kicked him out of this team has nothing to do with any of what they just said there. It's purely because he's one of the people who struggled the most at that E-League Road to Vegas match that we were watching, where obviously he looked at on paper, these were good maps for the team, and he thought they have a chance to win this and be in the E-League. And he's one of the guys who absolutely bombed the game, basically. And so I think that unfortunately, the problem in CS is that the right and the wrong game stick in people's minds. So sometimes a teammate is really not that good, but he has that one fucking game that was really important where he wins like a 1v3 and he like saved your ass, and you always have like positive thoughts when you think of this guy, and you won't kick him when you probably should. Meanwhile, sometimes it goes the other way. If you just fuck up at the wrong time and in the wrong game, like they're just the wrong map, then the teammates are like, oh, well, if there's a problem in the team, well, I know who we should get rid of first, and it's going to be that guy. So I think he might have been a little bit unfairly kicked out. He hasn't been great in the team more recently. He seemed like a rising talent potentially. The problem with that team is I don't think that team is going anywhere. So I don't know what the hope is, who the fuck they think they're going to get.
Yeah, but I mean, so here's the issue. Where does he go? You know, like I kind of feel this is the problem. He's come on. He's made a little bit of a reputation for himself. People are looking. He's on the radar. Everyone's like, "Oh, this guy could be good." Well, what's happening now? Where's the Polish team he's gonna slot into? He's never going to get another opportunity, realistically.
No, I mean, it seems like it. The big problem in the Polish scene at the moment, though, is that because no one can ever go to Virtus Pro. Which, I mean, if you thought it was bad with TSM and Dignitas, like at least every now and then they did fucking bring someone in. No one's ever going to be allowed on Virtus Pro because they keep winning shit every now and then. And so as a result, all everyone can do is just cycle the same talent again and again and again. I hope that this time it's like the magical voodoo special mixture.
There's one thing I can see in my crystal ball, though, Duncan.
Okay, yeah.
What about a trip to NA for Oskarish? He could be like top 10 out there.
Okay.
That's what we need to make happen. Let's do it. Do you remember how like Lurpis would on occasion just start these like crazy things just to make things happen, just to show like, I am influential. I can do all this. He did it with Fifth Lauren. Maybe we can get Oskarish to NA.
I mean, there's no UK teams, so I can't suggest he comes to the UK for work. But maybe NA. Maybe that'll be his land of opportunity.
It is. I've been out there recently myself. It's all true. The American dream is alive. Don't believe what you've heard. It's a fine country. I can't wait to burn my passport, pledge allegiance to the flag. I'm going to do that real soon. So anyway, that's all. That's everything. I can't think of anything else that we need to talk about. Can you?
No, that's the end of the show.
Yep. All right then. And with that, that's the end of the show. Bye.